The question is not necessarily what's inside it, because you guys have already seen the title of this video, but the question is, I don't know, what is the question? Leave a comment down below if you know what the question is that I'm trying to think. Probably, is it any good? It's quite a good question to ask really on a review, isn't it? Is it any good? So this is, wow. Now that's an unboxing experience. Let me just move this camera up and then move this camera down. Wow. When you open the box and that looks at you like that, that's gorgeous. So this, oh wow. I don't know why, but that was visually striking. Visually striking. What else is in the box? So, obviously we've got the 04 air unit documentation. In here we've got some black sides, just to make it look a bit more stealthy. We've got a GoPro or external camera mount. We've got some more TPU prints. We've got battery straps. We've got a battery... so what I'm looking for. Let me know in the comment down below what it's called. And then we've got a couple of sets of GEMFAN props. And then we've got all the documentation as well. So very, very similar to how iFlight's latest Nazgul came out. We've got the details on how to set up the GPS. I think that may be telling you to install. Well, it doesn't look like it actually, it's already there. And then in here we've got, let's have a look at what we've got in here. So we've got stickers. Interesting that the stickers are of the Mark V as opposed to of this. The Moz 7, which we've recently reviewed. And then you've got the Cinebot, Cinelogs, and the Darkster. You've got support email addresses. You've got the, I'll show that in a minute. Safety about where to fly, where not to fly. How to put your props on, how to set up Betaflight. What to do with your ELRS. This is a really good little setup here by GEPRC. I mean, I'm not surprised because obviously, you know, very similar to iFlight, they are the top of the game really when it comes to bind and flies. But here we've got obviously the flight controller, so you can see all the different UARTs that you can use if you need to. Tells you how to set it up if you need to set it up again. Shows you what's redundant, what you can use. Really, really good. Really nice little package that. Really super impressed actually. So out of here we're going to get a couple of battery straps. I normally only use one battery strap personally, but I've noticed with the longer quads that seem to be made these days. Oh, this is nice. This is really nice. Let me show you this. So you've actually got a little SIM tool for pressing the button in on the 04, because I'm forever looking for that. You've got some extra screws there. Then you've got the black sides. If the orange isn't to your style, there's one for each side, obviously. Got another battery mat there. Is it different types? No, they're both the sticky types. Nice to have a spare though. You've got some peripherals there. I'm going to put that to one side for now. Then you've got some more spares there, Allen keys, nut, wrench. There you've got your external camera GoPro mount. You've got another TPU mount for the rear if you want to put a different system on. And then you've got this really nice, and I'm going to open this up and put this on my keyring actually, because you've got this really nice carbon fibre GEPRC keyring, and it's made of carbon fibre. How cool is that? I love that. I absolutely love that. Fantastic. So that is the initial unboxing of the GEPRC Vapor D5 04 Pro with GPS and ELRS. It was made in February. It's been test flown. It's got the 04 Pro and it is a 6S drone. And all of that information is available on the side of the box for anybody that needs it. So we've got the flight controller, the GEPRC, it's an F7, and the ESC is a 60 amp BL Heli S, which means I assume, knowing GEPRC, we'll already have Blue Jay flash to it, but if we don't, that's a job that we are going to need to do. And we'll do that together if we need to, but I suspect it will already be on Blue Jay, if I'm completely honest. Right, let's take a closer look around this beast of a quad, shall we? Now, just very quickly before we move on to the QC, we can see here, look, that they've done what iFlight did on the Nazgul, and I'm sure they've been doing this themselves as well, don't get me wrong, but it shows you where each prop goes and in what orientation, just to make your life that little bit easier. Now we are going to have to take these sides off to have a good closer look at the insides, but that's what we'll do. Moving on to the QC check and having a closer look at this GEPRC Vapor. So first of all, we can see at the front of the drone, the 04 is held in by 2 screws. Again, that will help eliminate any sort of jello or vibration that other drones that just use one may encounter. Moving along, we can see we have the capacitor at the front of the flight controller there, and the XT60 is also, excuse me, soldered on at that side. We'll have a look at that soldering later. We've got the wire there, and we've got a buzzer on this side. Again, we'll flip round to the other side and we'll take a closer look. Moving along, we can see the solder joints from GEPRC are equally as nice as what we saw the other day on the Mall 7. Most, if not all, of that board is on plugs, so there is no other soldering to check, just the motors. And then we move up to the 04 Pro, which appears to be on some sort of... I'm trying to work out what that is. It appears to be on some sort of... I think it's carbon. I wonder if it's like a heat sink. Yeah, some sort of heat sink. Similar no doubt to the Mall 7 in order to keep it cool. Let me just readjust that focus, sorry. Similar to the Mall 7 in order to keep it cool, I've got absolutely no doubt. And then sliding towards the back there, we've got the wires that lead out. Let me just lift this camera up slightly. We've got the wires then that lead out to that M10 GPS antenna. So that's one side of the Mall 7 with the side taken off. Let's go and have a look at the other side. So moving around to the other side, again we can see the buzzer here attached to the same TPU as the capacitor. Sliding along, again we can see that lovely solder joint by GEPRC there. Let me just adjust that focus slightly, there we go. So we can see that lovely solder, or those lovely solder joints should I say, as always from GEPRC, top quality. Sliding back, we can see the sort of heatsink raised platform that the 04 Pro is sat on. We can see the antennas are attached. And then we can see the M10 GPS at the back. So far, so good. Just holding the XT60 cable out of the way, you can see the solder joint of the XT60 pads and the capacitor. Again, as expected, looking really, really good. I forgot to mention as well, we do have a USB Type-C on the flight controller, which, as you all know, any without is the bane of my existence, so I do have to give credit where credit is due. Well done, GEPRC. And taking a quick look at the motor coils, again, as we can see, with no surprises, those 2207E motors from GEPRC look absolutely beautifully well wound. and suggests the rest of the quad is equally as good in quality. Let's take a further look around. Just having a quick look at the spec of the motors. It's a SpeedX from GEPRC and it's a 2207E, 19,060 kV. Looks very nice as well. Fantastic. Just paying a little bit more attention to this camera mount, we can actually see that it's also soft mounted. So as well as being dual mounted, it's also soft mounted, and you've got that extra little chin underneath to give a little bit of extra strength as well. These 4 holes here, there's 2 here and 2 on the other side. You screw the side plate into them, and we'll come into that later on, don't worry. Or I may put that in what's called a setup video. I may have separate videos rather than making one long feature. We can have a setup video and a review video. I think may probably be the best way forward. But that is a look at the GEPRC Vapor. And I'll be honest, I'm really, really impressed. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Now let's move on. Really quickly, before we move on, make sure that you tighten these screws up. There's one on either side. Make sure you tighten it up, and then that way that GPS does not move in flight. There is a little thing within the box telling you to do it. It is easy to miss, so I just thought I'd highlight it whilst I was here putting it back together. Okay, just going to put that microphone there, so it might be a little different. This is how we put this back on now. There's a standoff that goes through, so you're going to need to screw it on. I've left it screwed into this side, so ultimately all you need to do initially is just find where the standoffs are and click them in. So that's now, you're going to need to line that up and obviously screw that back in. Then the other thing that you need to do is on the underside of the drone, there are 4 screws here, and you just need to screw. Obviously I've done the other side. You just need to pop these in. Oh. Trying to keep my big hands out of the way. And it just gives it a little bit of extra strength and rigidity. Probably could have lifted the camera up a little bit higher for this, so apologies. And that isn't actually going in, so let's have a look why. Oh, because we haven't lined it up properly. That would be why. There we go. So now we have lined it up properly. That one's still not quite tight. I'll have a look at that later, but that's essentially how you do it now. Then, like I say, you need to put the screw through here as well. I'm just trying to think where I put it. Maybe I've confused which screw is which. Maybe no, I don't think I have. Although yes, I have actually. That would be the reason why. This one is slightly thicker. No, that's still not. Let's just see if it will grip it at all. I don't think it will. No, I'll deal with that in a second. Let that drop out. And just finally, the last job that you need to do. Now these are lined up. It's just put that back in there, and that gives that all the rigidity it needs, so that if you do hit something or catch something, it's got a little bit of extra to it. And that is how you put the sides on and obviously take them off. The process to take them off is just the reverse of what I've shown you there. It really is simple. So it's one screw there, and then you've got a couple at the front, and that's it. Simple as that. And then obviously you put your top plate back on, and away you go. And it is literally as easy as that. Right, let's move on. Moving the main light out of the way, we can see it's 490 grams without a lipo, and 708 grams with a 1200 mAh 6S CNHL pizza battery. Obviously take with that as you need when it comes to regulations and things and fly legally, etc, etc. But that is the weight. As we can see, we have got quite a bit of moisture on that camera. The sides and the electronics should be relatively protected, and brushless motors, as we know, are waterproof, so for the sake of another minute it shouldn't be too much of a problem. But this does fly incredibly well. This is probably, and I know it's a bit early to say it and we need to do a lot more testing, but one of the better, if not the best, 5-inch bind and flies I have flown in a very long time, if not ever. I actually think I need to adjust my rates a little bit because it feels super twitchy because of how good that performance envelope is. But we'll review the footage after we get back. That's the best way to do it, rather than make any assumptions out here. We'll review the footage and we'll see where we go from here. But you know, rates aside, it's absolutely superb. I'm just glad I don't have to give it a score or my thoughts on it just yet, because my thoughts on it so far are just so good that I'd probably get accused of being a shill. It's that good. It really is that good. Let's go over here a second. It's a bit barren over here. There's not a huge amount to do. Stay away from the road. Obviously it's a 5-inch. Stay away from that transmitter, we don't want to fail safe do it. Always got to have your wits about you, and your spotter of course, whenever you're flying in a place like this. Tried to get a bit of a cinematic follow of that guy on the bike, but he's gone at some lick and I just didn't want to. There he is, look. All of this is fairly inhospitable territory as well, so ideally you don't want to be going down here. Let's be fair, you probably never want to crash it anywhere really. And we've got a low battery warning after 5 minutes. This flight's been 4 minutes and 50 seconds, so by the time we bring it back and land it, let's just launch it over there a second. So these gimbals feel exactly as you'd expect really from AG01s. Well, can I call them AG01s? Probably not, because that's a Radio Master thing, isn't it? But they're exactly as you'd expect from CNC gimbals. Smooth, precise. This radio feels so good in the hand. This drone feels like the best. And I hate that phrase with a passion, as you guys all know. But it feels like the best 04 Pro bind and fly I've flown. The iFlight was good. This is better. But this radio feels so good in the hands. So good. Now there is another version of this with R9D gimbals and an OLED screen, which I'm going to be honest is the version I thought I was getting, but for whatever reason I didn't. Beggars can't be choosers. But that said, I'm flying out of my skin here. You've got to bear in mind over there as well, it's a long walk. Combination of a great drone and a great controller really do make this a dream team. Let's do a reverse. Or a rewind even. That said, I hit it a little bit late. Let's try again. The hang time. It just hangs for days. So we're on 3 minutes flight time. This GEPRC Vapor is brilliant. It doesn't feel like a 5-inch. It feels lighter. It feels more powerful. It feels more nimble. It's hard to explain just how good it feels. I mean, that gives you an idea. Brilliant, just absolutely brilliant.
Hello.
Hello? What the fuck? Right, I'm at real danger of killing this Lipo now, but I don't want to stop. The combo of this drone and this control is just so good. But I am seriously in danger of killing a Lipo. And as much as China Hobbyline are a lovely sponsor, I don't want to go back to them and say, please may I have another battery? Because I killed it because I was having too much fun. I mean, if you're going to kill a Lipo, right, we're about to go down. And the first thing we're going to want to test is GPS return to home. It's just a little bit inhospitable here. However, so it was coming back then, but I panicked a little bit. So we're all good. The 04 and ELRS is so good. And this place, this abandoned colliery is incredible. I'd love for FPV Drone Fest to happen here. Maybe one day when I'm a big YouTuber I can have a little bit of influence on it. But it would be such an incredible playground. If we just look, there is gaps and think, oh, there's a guy down there in high vis. Let's just avoid him. Birds, got to be careful. But it just really is one of those places that is made or abandoned, left for FPV. It really would be such an ideal location for something like FPV Drone Fest UK. I do know that the owners is probably the wrong word. But the organisation that look after it are a little bit protective, and that's understandable because obviously it's of what it is. But most FPV pilots are fairly respectful. There we go. You know, I'm trying to stay away from people, trying to stay away from any sort of disaster. There's a guy down there, look. We're just having a little bit of fun out in the morning sun, which is incredible really, because just before I started to fly it was about minus a billion, and now as I'm flying the sun is shining on the righteous. Now then. Just a dog walker. Now I'm at 4 minutes flight time, 21.5 volts, so probably a good time to bring it back. But before we do, apparently this is known locally as Tit Hill, because if you view it from a certain location it looks like a pair of breasts. Now there is still a gentleman or a lady up there. Will not bother. Not worth upsetting people. We're trying to enjoy ourselves, and it's important that we're respectful to as many other people as we can be. There are HQ are sponsoring a lot of pilots these days, or a few pilots these days, with their own branded props. So your boy here has asked HQ to provide us with some Squadding Quads branded props. If you watch this and hear what I'm saying, then drop HQ a message and tell them that you'd buy some Squadding Quads branded props, and hopefully they'll work with us and we can get some props out there for our pilots, so that you know that when I recommend you a prop, it's a prop that's got my name on it, that I fly, that I've been part of the development of. You guys have supported me so incredibly over the past few days and weeks, and I can't thank you enough for it. So if I could just, you know, get something like that to help you guys know that what you're buying is legit, then everybody wins, don't they? And I wouldn't be asking for a cut of any profits either. So we've got to the community spotlight, and you may be wondering where the setup guide is that I normally provide in these videos. I've decided to split it into two, so if you click on the corner now, you'll actually get the link of how to set this particular drone up. The process is the same for all new drones, but some newer pilots would like to be shown on the drone that they've got. So rather than include it in every single review, I've separated it out just to make it a little bit cleaner. Now, let's go on to our community spotlight. And first of all, I want to give a massive shout out and thank you to Drone Life FPV. We have a Patreon that I have not advertised to anybody, and the idea is we charge $17 a month and it's limited to 22 people. For that $17 a month, we can then buy a drone that you guys of the 22 all decide which you would like me to review next. Therefore, there is no manufacturer interference or pressure, and we can give an honest review. At the end of the review, the drone will be given away to one of the 22 people in that Patreon. Now, that's not been advertised, but Drone Life FPV somehow has found it and has subscribed to it. So he's currently sat there on his own, and we can't begin this process until we have 22 people. So we need another 21 people. So I will leave the link to the Patreon down below. If you would like to subscribe it and have a chance of winning something like this GEPRC Vapor D5, I know a lot of you want to see the D6, and that would probably be next if we can crowdfund it, then please do go over and join Drone Life on Patreon. I've also been asked for different tiers of memberships within YouTube as well. So we have one now where you'll receive a physical badge, one where you'll get your name printed on the screen for the first 2 minutes, as well as the shout outs. They're all at different levels based on what other people have asked for. I don't expect you to subscribe at that level or at any level. If you wish to support the channel and help us get to the next level, then it would be greatly appreciated. But at the end of the day, it's not something that we in any way, shape or form demand. It's just an option there because people are asking for it. People are wanting to support the channel and people are wanting us to get to the next level. So first of all, thank you. Second of all, the options are now there. If you wish to choose them, you're free to. If you don't wish to choose them, there's no pressure. Now, member shout out: Christopher Clayton, The Good Shepherd Sheep, Adventure Printing, Pedro Toon, Grim FPV, Flip, SOS Death Pilot, Shaky FPV 21, Silicon Photography, Club Alexandra, Boy Wonder FPV, Connor Clark, Han Solo, Doper FPV, Mark Duplex, Harry M Photography, JR FPV, James III of Boston, Phil Anderson, Not Here, Onyx FPV, sorry, Only Drones, and Barry Morgan FPV. Like I say, if you want to join them, feel free, but there's no pressure to. Now, let's take a look at your comments. Gideon FPV says, great video. If my radio outputs 1 watt, is there any advantage of an additional transmitter module? The answer, quite frankly, is if you're using ELRS and not flying to the moon, then no. An external module would give you more flexibility, so you may be able to get a module that has FR Sky, Spectrum, so on and so forth, or even a Crossfire one, or you could get a Gemini one, which is a dual banded ELRS. But ultimately, if you're just flying ELRS and you don't intend to break several laws in doing it, then 1 watt is more than enough. But thank you very much for your comment. Vertalock probably wins the internet with this one. Get rid of those LEDs around the sticks. And this is a Boxer 2 or a Boxer C for compact. Like a Coxer. Thanks for your comment. And on the review of the GEPRC Mors 7, Gentle says, freaky ass title and intro. If you haven't seen my opening salvo and title of that video, please do go and give it a watch. It's within the first sort of 30 seconds and it's an intro I'm quite proud of. I enjoyed that one. It was quite big and difficult to handle, but we did it in the end. If you want to be featured in the next community spotlight, just like these 3 legends have done, drop a comment on this video. Just make it stand out. You know, whether it be a Coxer or about a freaky ass little title or whatever, whether it's a technical question like the first one, just make your comments stand out and we'll try and feature you in the next community spotlight. Right, let's find out whether you should buy this bloody thing. So we come to the last section of this video and ultimately it asks the question, should you buy it and who is it for? And I think it's important first of all to look at what the Vapor D5 is. And ultimately I believe this is going to be the replacement for the Mark V from GEPRC. It's cheaper than what the Mark V is and spec wise it's horses for courses, so it's got one spec that's better than the Mark V, but then the Mark V's got something better than it. But ultimately this is priced better. For an 04 Pro version with ELRS in the configuration that I've demonstrated here, it comes in at $437, which is about 380 English pounds. And for that, you are getting the most fun I've had with a quad for a long time. Spec wise, let's have a look at the spec. So it's got an F7 HD version 2 flight controller. The ESC is a 60 amp flight controller, but this is where you do look at a compromise because it's BLHeli-S instead of a 32-bit. So it's not an AM32 like the iFlight was. And I believe the Mark V is a 32-bit as well. You've got an M10 GPS, 2207E 1960 kV motors. It does come with GemFam 5136 props, but I did instantly switch them out to fly with the props I fly with. I respect GemFan, I like what GemFan do, but currently those props from HQ are my go-tos, and if I can review all the drones of the same size with the same props, it just helps me understand the difference. Some nice little bits in the box. You get a nice little keyring which is sort of printed onto carbon fiber. You also get that sim tool, which is brilliant because we all need a sim tool for binding our 04, don't we? But this is the first time I've ever seen a company include one. Now it does come in True X and Dead Cat. I've got the Dead Cat because ultimately I'm using the 04 Pro, and for 99.9% of the time I'm not going to need an external camera on something like this. So that's the spec and the realization of what we're actually dealing with here. The question is, who is it for? And ultimately, if you're in the market for an 04 Pro bind and fly that's a 5-inch that has a phenomenal performance, that is really well tuned, that you can just take out of the box, set up and go and fly and have no worries about whatsoever, then in my opinion, this is the current one to buy. There are lots of pilots who say the new Deep Space is probably better than this, and this is slightly better than the iFlight Eco. Where I live, they're both priced very similarly, so ultimately it's brand choice and it's spec choice. Specs are very similar. I think you've got a better flight controller on this, but you've got a better ESC on the iFlight version. Of the two that I can say this felt better, I would say the GEPRC felt better and was more enjoyable, I think, to fly. So as it stands, of the drones that I have reviewed in a 5-inch, that's a bind and fly with an 04 Pro, I would say the GEPRC would be the one to go to if you are in the market for buying a brand new DJI 04 Pro 5-inch bind and fly FPV drone. And if you want something a bit smaller, then check the end screen and watch this video now.